everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday, and today I thought it would be interesting to discuss something that's a little bit on the untraditional side of Christmas, sort of like I did with my Die Hard review. And that film, as you can see by the title, is called The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yes, this film, although it is different from what we would consider a traditional Disney film, I think it's still it holds up fairly well as a Christmas classic or as a sort of non-traditional holiday film. Now, I'm not saying that it is free from flaws or completely perfect, but I think what it does offer is a good feel and representation of sort of the holiday season, and I think it handled its sort of story fairly creatively, and I really love how it's sort of celebrated and showcased around this time of year. And I think it's definitely worthy of recognition and of something that's, I think, rather unique to Disney. And I'm not going to say that it is on par with maybe some of the more traditional Disney films, but I will say this is probably one of my favorites. Out of all of the Disney films, this one I think has sort of stood out to me as being fairly fun within my childhood as well as within my adulthood. I think it's held up fairly well, and I think deserves some viewership during this time of year. Especially during Christmas time in particular, although I think a lot of people like to associate it with Halloween, and although I do associate it with Halloween, and I even discussed it as being one of the more scarier animated films, I still find that it holds a lot of the cheer and sort of curiosity that I think comes with this magical time of year of Christmas. So I consider it, I guess, more of a Christmas film in that sense. And at the same time, too, again, this is sort of a film that's designed around the invasion of Christmas and not really on the invasion of Halloween. So I think it only makes sense that it jives into being on more of a Christmas story. But at the same time, again, you could associate it with either or. But I like to associate it more with Christmas and more with the winter time, because I think that's really the holiday that's primarily focused on and is given sort of a plot around. So, in case you have never seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I highly recommend that you watch if you're interested, is based around who else? The Pumpkin King named Jack Skellington. Skeleton. He is a skeleton, basically, and he ultimately decides to dress up and impersonate Santa for a year, for a Christmas time, or really for Christmas Eve, really, because he primarily is the one who really ends up giving the children the presents in the sort of universe that they try to set up in, which is based around sort of the holidays, and you even see Thanksgiving at one point. Thanksgiving has a door. The an Easter egg for Easter has the door. It tries to center it around this whole kind of holiday universe, which I think is something really unique. And that's really how Jack Skellington stumbles upon the holiday of Christmas, because he is the primary leader of Halloween. And so he decides to take on the job of Santa because he sort of, I think, feels unfulfilled. And you'll sort of see this in the beginning when he has this opening number song where he sort of sings about it. And that's something also that I should note within this film. I think the music suits the tone really well, and complements sort of what's going on. And so you see how sort of this plan kind of goes awry, and a villain ends up being revealed, and there's a whole lot of wacky things that end up happening as a result of sort of Jack Skellington's plan to kind of take over Christmas. And you'll sort of see how the other characters get involved in this as well, and who ultimately takes up a significance in the story, which you'll see with characters like Sally and uh, the children that end up capturing Santa Claus, that are part of the Halloween town, or basically the Halloween universe. Because basically how they try to sort of represent the holidays is that they each have their own sort of world, and that when you go into a forest, at least in the Halloween town, you can open up all the different doors that lead to all the different holiday worlds, and that's kind of how it really sets up this kind of goofy premise, but at the same time, it's still, I think, a very creative premise, and there's a lot of fun that goes along with such a premise, and I think that's why this film, I think, remains so engaging for a lot of people. And I think it's why that Disney likes to showcase this film in particular around the time of Halloween and Christmas. So I think it only makes sense that this would be a very a very well recognized animated film, stop motion animated film, I should say. And again, we have Danny Elfman's enchanting music, and we have, I think he even sings the part of Jack Skellington. I'm not sure if he does the voiceover too, but I'm almost certainly positive that he did the singing on Jack Skellington. But really, that's ultimately the heart and the focus of the story. And I think it really works. I find myself enjoying it and being engaged by it every year. I think it's just held up to this certain standard that I think is again doing something is again by doing something unique. This film, I don't think, has really touched on a premise that's been really touched upon before, at least in an animated film, where you have a world of holidays and you have sort of these two holidays kind of combining and clashing with one another, and you'll sort of see how that is if you choose to watch the film. And there's a lot of hijinks that sort of ensue. So there are points where it is kind of ridiculous and over the top, and again, that's why I label this as more of a non-traditional, again, like Die Hard, but it's nowhere as I guess, I guess I wouldn't say it's as out there as Die Hard, but at the same time, it has this very interesting way of approaching this kind of plot, with somebody from Halloween Town, Jack Skellington, sort of taking over another holiday. So you do see sort of the kind of contrast that the holidays provide, and I think it's a good story. Are the characters the most in-depth, psychologically interesting people? No, I don't believe so. But at the same time, I think what Jack Skellington is going through is actually something rather unique and usually, I think, not really all explored. Again, yes, there's this emphasis that he wants more out of life, like every other, like the majority of Disney characters. But I think the idea of him feeling like he's unfulfilled and that he needs to accomplish something brilliant and do something different than what he's been doing in the past, that he has to kind of work to this sort of goal. I think that's something that's actually rather interesting, and it takes sort of the traditional cliche of a Disney film and it incorporates it in a way of curiosity and of and combining these things together, of trying to find a sense of fulfillment and achievement. And I think that's really what was focused on with Jack Skellington, as opposed to the more traditional uh, Disney films, where usually it's the character who wants something more for themselves, and usually that's not through, hard work or through sort of wonder. It's more for to kind of maybe more belong somewhere. And for Jack, it's not really necessarily about belonging as it is more about um, him figuring out what he can do um, with himself as a individual in order to ultimately accomplish something good. And I think that's really, really honing in on the Christmas spirit. And that's why I kind of consider this more of a Christmas film compared to a Halloween film, because even though Halloween is Jack Skellington's thing, you kind of do see the passion and the drive that he has in wanting to discover something about Christmas and wanting to have that sort of um, that ability to sort of make Christmas and do something. So that's really the focus on this film, and I think that's what this film did really well of capturing, and I thought was actually rather unique compared to a lot of other Disney films that I've seen over the years who tried to kind of put in this cliche. It has the cliche there, but it takes it in a different sort of direction, I feel, because it's more about um, Jack sort of giving back to society, or um, giving back to the people by achievement, rather than by achieving some or pursuing a goal for some selfish ends. And that's what I think is really unique about it, and that's why I really enjoy this film. Um, is it perfect? Again, absolutely not. It's not. It's not the same as It's Something Like It's a Wonderful Life, and again, it's not the same as something like Die Hard or like A Christmas Story, but I feel like it has that similar Christmas holiday spark and magic to it, and I feel like there's a lot to enjoy about this film. And again, regardless of what you celebrate this time of year, I still feel like it captures that sort of cheer and spirit that happens this time of year, and I think it captures it in a really unique way. So, does it have flaws? Absolutely. Is the premise a little bit out there? Yes, I'm sure, but overall, I think it really holds up, and there's a little bit of more depth to it, I feel, um, than some other Disney films that have come around over the years. So it's definitely, I think, one of my more favorite ones. If I were having to go through sort of a list of Disney films, I would say that this is definitely a classic in the sense of being a non-traditional Christmas film. And again, I'm not saying it's anything like, again, other Christmas classics like White Christmas and, all that jazz. But if you're looking for something a little bit um, maybe a little bit less formulaic, or a little bit more just out there, this is, I think, a definitely good place to start. If you like those kinds of out there things like Die Hard, I think you can find some enjoyment from this film too. If you don't mind that it's a little bit more downplayed for kids, it's fun and it's unique, and I enjoy it, and I think it's definitely worth a recommendation this time of year. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about the film as a whole. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.